Hey guys, now let's start with the chat room creation part, which is going to be the next interesting part where we are going to sync the chat rooms using WebSocket. So that's going to be interesting. So before that, let's do the HTTP part where we need to do the chat room creation. For that, let's start with creating the router, the HTTP router for that. So let's call this as chatroom HTTP router. I'm gonna grab most of the code from earlier implementations so that it's easier. It's going to be using Alamo Fire. I'm gonna create an enum for that. That router pattern is totally dependent on the enum pattern. So I'm going to call it chatroom HTTP router. I don't need it public because everything is within this one. So I'm just going to keep it as private, internal itself. And this is going to implement reactive HTTP router. I guess I can call it even in the extension because here it's going to have multiple endpoints. But for the time being, I'm going to create only the create using chatroom endpoint. We need the models to be imported for that. So models. So for creation of a chat room, we are going to use the chat room model itself, which is already there from long back. So some of the things we might have to change over here because when we are sending a request, we are only going to create the chat room based on the title and the subject right now. So that is right now the name and the subject. Rest of the things are going to remain optional. So we have to modify that one. So maybe I can right away do that. This is going to be optional side where I don't need a creator is mandatory because I'll be sending that, but then created at is something which is going to get created on the server side. So I don't need to be passing that. I'm going to keep it along with created at, updated at, and ID. ID is also something which is going to get generated on the server side. All that I need to pass then is going to be the creator name and the subject. And even I might have to modify these members side. It's already giving me errors. So let me check. Optional type. Okay. So here ID is going to be, I'm just making it empty. You don't need that. Created it is again an optional, which we right now made it as optional. So that's the reason it gave me an error. So that's fixed right now. And this should not give an issue because if value is there in the ID, it's going to get that ID value here. So that's a change I made. And also maybe I will need an init for this chat room. Okay, I need an extension in it. I'm going to create that. We already have an extension. I'm going to include an init for this. I'm just going to grab it. You don't need to spend much time there. So I'm just going to say name, subject, creator, and members. I'm keeping members as an empty array right now. I'm not going to send any members to create a create a server. I'm not going to send any members right now to create a chat room. That's going to happen later once I start fetching all the existing users. So that's going to be a dynamic one as well. Like we can show the users who are already logged in with like a available kind of a, like you see that green icon around them if they are available. Otherwise it will be offline or something. We can even do that. So I'm just waiting for that to be completed before I include the members right now. And I also need to fetch all the registered members. I don't have many. I need to create some random ones and then try testing that. So member, it's already giving me an error for this messages. There are no messages right now. I'm just going to instantiate that with an empty. This can be, again, I can just keep it as false initially because server is again what keeps this empty or not. In members is going to be a var so that it does not give an error again. These three are not identified as, okay, we need to make it var. That's the only change. That's also done. So now it should not be a problem. So this is my init, and yeah, that's enough. That's init is available outside that I'll be using to create a chat room. So my chat room creation part My router is ready. Now router is going to be using the same kind of structure. I'm going to create an extension for chatroom HTTP router. It's going to implement reactive HTTP router, and this one is going to come with some of the things which we anyway need to implement, like the base URL, path, method, headers, and even I guess the body part. Let me just copy the body part. Okay, let's create that body as well. Body. And one more thing, which is the interceptor, which we also are using. Even that one is needed over here because we will need a interceptor to be passed, and we know what is the interceptor. We already have this. We can just say the interceptor is going to be JWT token interceptor. So this is what sets the I have added a lock and all. I had missed it in the last episode. So lock, wherever you are making a request, let's say in the adapt, I just lock it, and once its job is done, within it defer. This is the last statement which executed after all of this is complete. So defer, unlock it. Similarly on retry, I do a lock, and defer, I unlock it. So this was missing in the last one, and as per Alamofy's documentation, they were actually asking for this to be locked. And one other thing which we might have an issue going forward, I will make a change over here on the retry as well, because when I tested, if my server request is failing, if I do a retry, it's going to retry indefinitely. Infinite number of retry is going to go to the server. So I might just block it for the time being. I might just keep this as do not retry if it is not 401. For 401 we are doing it because we need to refresh the token, and once that token refresh is completed, we try the last request which needs to go through. So that we are retrying. It is anyway going to succeed, but then other ones I don't think I need to retry right now. So I might just keep it as do not retry. Maybe I can keep it right away. So that's the reason I don't need a retry. But for your implementation, if you need a retry and if you need to set a count to the number of retries, you can always do that. Maybe within the request itself, the number of retries you need, and then compare it the number of retries which has already happened, and then once that count is over, you can just say do not retry now. So that in that way you can avoid infinite number of indefinite retry happening on the server towards the server. So that is the JWT I wanted to talk about. This interceptor I have kept, and the body header base URL is going to be the same base URL 8080 API HTTP, and path is going to be, right now it is switch self. Case is going to be, the pattern is going to be create. I don't need any of these. Default is on, there is only one right now, but it can have multiple later. I'm gonna say case. Okay, you already have a case, and I'm gonna return the path to be chat room. So that's the only thing which I need to create a chat room. Chat room is enough. Then method is going to be post create. I don't need this. Return post. It's a create request. It's going to be a post. And headers, at least I need one header. I also can combine it over here, so I don't need to duplicate it all over the places. JWT access token adapt can actually add this one if needed. And the body is something I need. Switch self and create. I need the chatroom object to create a body, and I don't need the default part. I'm just gonna say return. I need the utility to be included because I need the new JSON encoder.encode value is chatroom. That's going to create the object, encoded object. Is that a one? Okay. Okay, instead the same thing is happening within. I don't need the utility because I already have it within the model, which creates you the JSON data which needs to be sent. So internally, that's the same thing which is happening. JSON encoder.encode is already happening, which is a throws function. So I'm just using that, which is already there internally within your model. So chatroom.json data is what I'm sending. Now we need a chat room service. This is chat room service, which is different. Let's create one more called as a chat room service, which is going to have all the CRUD operations: get, create, update, and delete. So I'm going to create a chat room service right now. New file, chat room service. It's going to be within this connect service. And I don't think I need Alamofire. I think I only need this is anyway going to need Rx Swift and Rx Relay to do its stuff, and obviously it's going to require import of models. Let me create a class chat room service, and this is what is going to be public final, because this is what is going to be exposed to the interactor as a service. And this needs now the API implementations. So I can also have a protocol defined chatroom API, and this is going to have a function called create, and this is going to accept a chat room using chatroom, and it's going to return a single, maybe a void is enough, I guess. Okay, it's going to return the chat room, because on create the response is going to be chat room, and I'm going to keep it as public because this is what I'm going to expose to the outside world. And extension of chatroom service is going to implement my API, and it's going to implement that function create. Now is where I need some things. First thing is I need the HTTP service to be available here. So let me create that private let HTTP service is going to be the chatroom HTTP service. That's a common one I'm using everywhere for each and every services which is using. So this is what the service I'm passing, base service for each and every router calls. And then I'm gonna make it this as a singleton. So I'm gonna say private init. I don't think I need anything to be passed to this. I'm just keeping it as private, and then I'm creating a singleton. Class name, chatroom service is going to be a singleton publicly available. That's enough. And now this function implementation can start. So I do have a chatroom HTTP service right now, HTTP router, and then I can just call the create function passing the chatroom, and then I call the Rx part of it, which gives me the request with service, and I pass the HTTP service to that, and that's going to respond back with the JSON, and I can then map it and start parsing. Response data, mapping that response data, and I have realized one thing, that everywhere the parsing logic seems to be common. So whatever I'm going to do is I'm going to implement the normal parsing logic over here, but then I'm gonna extract that logic as a generic function and then use that to do a codable parsing. Because if you see, because I have integrated Rx, if I had not used this Rx, and if it was a plain request like this, I'll just show you. It was giving me a response called response decodable, which is more like it's already parsing and giving me an error response. So similar way we can do something even with the parsing using generics, where I can just write one function, it will give me parsed data, because all of the validations, if I look at it, it's more or less the same. Let's say I have this parser function. Okay, so I think I don't need to spend much time over it because I already have this function response parser I have already defined over here. Maybe I can just explain what is going on here. If you need more explanation, I can create a separate tutorial over here. So I have created something called as a parse throwable. So that is what I'm going to call here. This response data is already received here. I'm going to just say try parser response parser dot parse throwable, means it can throw a response, throw the error to me, ambiguous reference of rx as single. So it's complete, one line of code to parse it, and it is going to parse that logic. So whatever is happening within it, I can explain. Like all the parsing logic I had earlier used to have the same thing where it's checking for data error dot data response dot error. If there is an error, it's going to throw something with a localized description of that error. If not, if this, it's checking for the status code, and then it's comparing whether it is 201 or 200. That's going to be the common conditions on which you need to check for your errors. Like 200 is for fetching, maybe, and 201 for its creation. So at least in this case, when we are creating the new chat room, we are going to get a 201. So it's always comparing with that status code. And if that status code is not there, if it is some other status code, I'm checking whether it is 404. It is common, again 401 or 400, bad request, or a unauthorized. Unauthorized is not going to come through here anymore because we are already handling it somewhere else. So I can always comment this out because is that the case? Yeah, I can always comment this out. I can remove this one because it's going to be handled by the interceptor which we have defined. So 440 I'm getting rid of. Then you have 400 bad request or 404, that object is not found. And then there can be a case where it can be 500 where it is an internal error. So I'm just capturing, if this not this, then I'm just saying 500 internal, it's going to be an internal error. So this again is a common logic for each and every layer, each and every parsing logic. Plus, if the data is if it is 200 or 201, if there is a data existing, I'm coming over here and then I'm doing it, trying to parse it. So I'm just using that same function which creates a parser, like decoder. It's creating a decoder over here, and I'm trying to decode a type called t, which I'm passing at the beginning of the function, which is my generic type. And the generic type, I'm saying it should conform to Codable. So every Codable class or a struct which I have created can be passed as a parameter, generic parameter, to my parse throwable function. So it should implement Codable. That's a simple confirmation I'm sticking to. So because I can always say t dot self, normally what you used to do is, let's say if it was chat room, I used to do chatroom dot self, and in turn chatroom is implementing Codable. So this is what I'm trying to say. T is conforming to Codable, and I'm trying to see what is the type of self, passing the data. It's going to parse whatever be the Codable that is coming through this. So that is the generic implementation I did for parsing logic, because everywhere I was just duplicating more of that code. And if parsing is failing, I'm sending a server, I'm sending a parsing failed error to whoever wants to receive that. It might be the presenter or somebody. So this is what I have made it as common as a function, parse throwable. I've kept the name as parse throwable because it is parsing and throwing something, throwing an error. So this is what I am going to use over here. This is what I am using, parse throwable, and it is accepting a response data. Even I can make it simpler. I can just get rid of this and then can say $0. It's not going to give you an error. And even simpler than this, I can get rid of this try and all of this, and I can just say map. Even this is going to work, and I can get rid of this. That's it. Data response pass throughable. So this is my parsing logic all chained across. I'm creating a create request, passing the chat room response. I'm making a request using the HTTP service which I have, which is the reactive HTTP service, and I get a response, JSON response. I'm using the JSON response, passing it to the parse throughable because it is conformed. This function is conforming because the chat room is conforming to Codable. It can be parsed. So once it is parsed, silently it's going to return the specific type which I have passed. So it's already identifying what is the type it needs to parse as well, and I'm just saying as single. So this is my simplest logic for this create. Everywhere I have modified it with this logic. So if you see even in chat rooms, server response, I'm mapping doing this. Even I can simplify this one. You can just say parse. Even that is going to compile. So everywhere it's the same logic, simplified logic right now. So most of the parsing logic is now moved to the response parser. It is nothing but a simple error handling, and it needs to just conform to T should conform to conform Codable, and the return type is also going to be T. So whatever you are passing is what, I mean, whatever is the definition you are giving over here is what you get.